Ideas shape the world. They give meaning, direction, and possibility. I'm Willie Peterson, former CEO, Columbia professor, and author of Leadership, the Inside Story, an exploration of the principles that have shaped my leadership journey. Some ideas last for centuries. Others emerge and redefine how we lead. This is Ideas That Matter.
We all are the result of change, but we all fear change.
Yes.
And that's a very interesting dilemma. And I think through your thinking and the logical process you're putting in place, now we have kind of a formula that we can start evaluating different perspectives in a different way, which I think is very insightful. It's genius, actually. So let's talk, if we can, then about the philosophy, intelligence, building the intelligence. How does that work into the leadership aspect and equation in your mind?
Yeah, thinking again about Howard Gardner's definition and the three domains of leadership, or the three vital disciplines of personal, interpersonal, and strategic. I go right back in time. As I think about philosophy, there's a kind of a timeline for me in terms of the ancient sages in the East, and I go here to Confucius to begin with. That gives us a very important reminder when we think about leadership. And Confucius said, if you want to be a leader, you must first be a human being. And that's a resounding reminder that leadership is about people, but work happens through people, and great work happens through inspired people. And there is a distinction. All work happens through people. You can use tools, etc., like artificial intelligence and various other tools, spreadsheets and various other things that help you be more efficient. But you've got to be the architect of these things, because they are merely vehicles. They're delivery systems to help us do good work. It happens through people, and management is really about things. Leadership is about people. So that's kind of my first port of call, to make that understanding pretty clear. Then I go to the Greek philosophers as I build up my kind of repertoire of understanding and structure my thinking. So first, leadership is about people. Okay, that comes from Confucius. Now I go to the three great philosophers, Greek philosophers, right? We start with Socrates, and then we go to Aristotle, and we go to Plato. All right. So now we go through that little journey, and what do we learn from that? Well, Socrates gave us a wonderful gift. We think about adapting successfully to the external environment through effective learning. Now, we all learn all the time from various stimuli, but we're not really very conscious of how we learn and what the best techniques are for learning effectively. We don't think about it explicitly. We just say, oh, that's interesting, and I just spoke to this person, I learned this, I read this book, this article, and, that's but some learning that occurs. But how can we drive learning as opposed to just accidentally bump into it? Now, what he taught us was the power of questions, what we call the Socratic Method. And prior to Socrates, there were these people called sophists who toured around Greece teaching people the art of rhetoric, expressing themselves very clearly. And Socrates, he observed this and said, this is not a great way to learn. I learn nothing, he said, from repeating what I already know. And the audience learns very little from what's being pushed at them without their participation. He said, learning is a social activity. And we learn best by framing great questions. Now, here's the interesting thing, and this speaks to the power of metaphors. He observed his mother, and she was a midwife. And of course, she facilitated the birth of babies. but she didn't herself give birth. She facilitated the birth of babies. He said, that's exactly what I do with learning. I don't give birth to learning. I facilitate its delivery through questions. Now, I step back from that. I use that regularly in doing a situation analysis about how we understand the external environment, how we understand our own realities as I construct a strategic learning approach, and it's Socratic. Everything we know in the world comes from a question somebody asked. I mean, even Einstein with his E=mc², he doesn't just sit there playing his violin and suddenly it flew into his head. It came from posing a very, very important question. So what I often offer people is beware of answers without great questions in front of them. Mm-hmm. And beware of living through entrenched answers without refreshing them through challenging underlying assumptions through questions. So leaders, in order to drive learning, have to be really, really good at asking great questions, inviting questions, open-ended questions that become our portals of discovery. Mm-hmm. And we've got to be careful of questions used as weapons. I used to practice law, and in cross-examinations, questions are used as weapons to expose ignorance, inconsistency, and falsehoods. Learning questions are very different. They're inviting questions. And they're not just questions that ask people, what do you think about this? What further evidence can you give us about this? Those questions are rather threatening. It's putting somebody on trial. Much better to say we. What more can we think about? What more can we explore? Make it a joint effort. And now nobody's on the defensive. So, that's the power of questions. That came from Socrates. Now I go to the next guy, and that's Aristotle. And what I discovered there, and this is a very short and simple one, is, we often think about and discuss justice. What is justice? And people get very profound and very complicated in discussing justice. And I came across this definition. I like very short, penetrating ideas. And Aristotle simply said that justice means that everybody gets what they deserve. I just love that definition. It's a great test. We all get what we deserve. We live with the consequences of our own actions, and we deserve to live with those consequences. That's one of those things. We can't just pass it off and be a victim and say, this one's fault, that one's fault, etc. That comes back to taking responsibility for our own actions. So that's what I learned from. There's many other things from Aristotle. He was the first person to break down knowledge into various areas of expertise, as you well know. I mean, before his arrival, people were taught philosophy, gymnastics, and mathematics, I think. Mm-hmm. And then he brought all the sciences into play. And that's what, university curricula are now based on Aristotle's original ideas. Mm-hmm. Now, Plato did us a great favor because we're always striving for ethical behavior. And it's a very slippery thing to define. There are various definitions of ethics. Now, he gave us a definition of ethics 2,500 years ago that I don't think anybody has improved on. And I teach a short section on ethics for executives. Mm-hmm. And I put this definition up on a PowerPoint. I ask people to examine it and say, can you improve on that definition? And nobody ever has. Here's the definition Plato gave us on ethics. Ethics, I quote, is behaving in the public interest, not just your self-interest, in the public interest, regardless of who is watching, without the expectation of a reward, and without the fear of punishment. Now, every time I think about that definition, I wonder to myself, is there a way to improve on it, elaborate on it, to make it more useful? I can't find one. And I think that's a great way to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when once we begin to say, well, I better not do this in case somebody's watching, you're doing it out of fear of punishment, of retribution, of shame. That's not ethics. That's fear.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And when you say, I'm doing it for the expectation of a reward, that's transactional ethics. That's not ethics that's driven by an underlying set of principles. So we can, talk about this and think about it. I mean, there was a famous golfer. At a particular moment, he was lining up to putt the ball, I believe, and accidentally he touched it. It did not move a fraction of an inch, but it was against the rules. Nobody saw him do it, and he called a stroke against himself. Mm-hmm. Nobody had watched him do it, and he lost the U.S. Open by that one stroke. Mm-hmm. And when he put this on his scorecard, people said, well, why did you do that? You didn't get any advantage. The ball didn't move forward. Nobody saw it happen. It was a harmless thing you did. It was just a little accident. And but then the praise was heaped on him. You're a really good man to do that, monitoring your own behavior, regulating it, and conducting yourself accordingly. And they said, well done, congratulations. He said, you shouldn't congratulate me. You might as well congratulate me for not robbing a bank. Hi, I'm Willie Peterson. Leadership is not about wielding power. It's about authenticity and inspiring others to achieve a shared purpose. Excelling as a leader is a continuous journey of pursuing ideas that matter as the environment shifts and new challenges emerge. Thank you for watching. Please share your ideas by leaving your comments below. We learn best when we learn together. And if you've enjoyed this discussion, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Thank you again.
Quick break from the conversation, because this might be the most important invitation you get all year. Are you leading people through change right now? Rolling out strategy? Launching new tech? Or just trying to keep up with the speed of AI? Then don't miss our upcoming Guidewise workshop, Execution or Extinction, How to Lead Change in the Age of AI. 72% of change efforts fail, not because of bad strategy, but because of hidden resistance. You can't fix what you can't see, and that's where we come in. This workshop will give you the tools to overcome people resistance, diagnose belief and behavior breakdowns, and drive adoption with speed, clarity, and confidence. You'll walk away with a 90-day implementation roadmap and the career skill that separates leaders who thrive from those who get left behind. Seats are limited. Click the link in the description to join the waitlist and be the first to know when registration opens. And as a courtesy to our community of implementers, we've waived the admission fee. Just use the promo code IMPLEMENT when you sign up. Now, back to the discussion.